My daughter's wedding is starting. Hurry up and come. What? Your daughter is still in high school, isn't she? My name is Nancy Wilson. 15 years ago, my husband left me to remarry his mistress. Since then, I've been raising my daughter, Emily, as a single mother. At the time of the divorce, I was working part-time, but now, thanks to my hard work, I run my own business. Currently, Emily is in high school and is gradually becoming more adult-like, recently starting a part-time job. Emily, who used to always call me mommy, has now become so reliable that she even helps me out. We have a great mother-daughter relationship and spend every day laughing and having fun together. This takes us back about 15 years. At that time, I was married to my then-husband, John, for 6 years, and our daughter, Emily, was 2 years old. Both John and I worked, and since his family owned a business, he had a high income as the next company president, so we never struggled financially. I worked part-time and didn't earn much, but I managed all the household chores and childcare. We supported each other and had a happy family life, but gradually I noticed a change in John's behavior. For example, he started working late and going in on weekends. He also became indifferent towards Emily and me. I suspected an affair but wanted to trust my husband, so I didn't investigate. However, my worst fears were confirmed in the worst possible way. How about we go to an amusement park as a family next weekend? Oh, I have to work that day. I see. You've been busy lately. Yeah, I'm gonna be the next president of the company. Well then, Emily, let's go, just the two of us. Let's go! Even though John was indifferent, I didn't confront or question him. I thought he was working hard for our family. As time went on, Emily and I spent more weekends alone, and our time with John decreased. Then one day, he suddenly announced, "I've fallen in love with someone else, so I'm going to divorce you and remarry her." When he said this, I was shocked and couldn't understand what he meant at first. What do you mean? Are you having an affair? Yes. And I already have a child with her. What? I was even more shaken by the revelation of another child. John had shown no signs of this behavior when we were dating or married. I've been seeing her since right after we got married, and our child is almost 5 years old now. Wait, do you realize what you're saying? That child is older than Emily. Yeah. And, I just feel more comfortable with them, so I thought maybe I should marry her. His casual attitude was astounding, and I was speechless with disbelief. He said it so nonchalantly that I was dumbfounded and appalled. Gradually, I began to grasp the weight of his words, and my body started to tremble. Seeing me downcast, he must have thought I was worried about money, and then he added even more thoughtless words. Don't worry, I'll give you a fair share of the assets, pay alimony, and even give you a lump sum for child support. It's good that my family is wealthy. You're poor, after all. Although John's family was wealthy, mine was just an ordinary household, and he seemed to think I was poor. But money wasn't the only issue at hand. Oh, by the way, my parents already know about this. They're supportive of my remarriage. What's that supposed to mean? It just shows how useless you are. Losing to the mistress, that's kind of hilarious. They knew about it all along? Yeah. She's been over to the family home and all. My ex-husband said this with a sneer. I couldn't believe that even my in-laws knew. I was a mix of anger, disbelief, and frustration, feeling chills run down my spine. What about Emily? She's losing her father. If you really cared about her, you wouldn't do this. I forced the words out, feeling a tightness in my throat. Well, the other woman's child is mine too. If you want me to stay as Emily's father, maybe you should become the mistress next? His words made me realize how cold I had become towards him. I was disillusioned to understand that this was what family meant to him. I felt pathetic for having been married to such a person. Fine. Do whatever you want. When I updated my bank book, I saw a large deposit, and my savings increased significantly. Looking at it, I felt like he thought paying money settled everything. Tears streamed down my face as I stared at the numbers. Then, a call came from my former mother-in-law. Hello? You got the money, right? Yes. Then don't have anything to do with us anymore. She said her piece and hung up unilaterally. I felt even more empty and let out a sigh. What was all the time I spent with that family for? How will I explain this to Emily when she grows up? Not knowing who to turn to, I cried in the shower at home, making sure Emily didn't notice. The next day, I received the divorce papers already filled out, indicating he had been preparing for this. I signed them and immediately took them to the office. Then, I got a call from my ex-husband. Hey, you need to move out of the house you're living in by the end of this month. What? Well, it's in my name. So, hurry up and get out, will you? I can't just leave on such short notice. Just go back to your parents' place. Bye. How much more does he intend to push us? Did we ever do anything to him? His selfish behavior and actions were beyond forgiveness. It was the first time I felt such rage. My parents' house is far away, and while returning there is an option, it would mean changing my job. I was contemplating the need to find a new place to live in order to continue my current job. But then I thought this might be a turning point, so I decided to move back to my parents' house. I chose to start anew with Emily in a different environment. When I got home and told my parents everything, they were furious. My father was ready to confront my in-laws, but my mother and I calmed him down, and we discussed the future. We decided not to have any further contact with them, and my parents were eager to support Emily and me. I felt sorry for my parents, knowing they must be suffering more than me. They gave me kind, positive words. They took care of both me and Emily and said I didn't need to work until I felt better. But I couldn't rely on them completely, so I started looking for a job the next day. I immediately started job hunting and took care of all the necessary administrative procedures, doing everything I could to ensure Emily wouldn't face any hardships. While I was at the employment agency looking for work, a call came in from a friend. Hello. Hey, Nancy. Are you okay? What do you mean? Did you get divorced? I hadn't told anyone but my parents about the divorce, so I was taken aback by her words. How did you know? It's on social media. Some woman posted snatched a wife's husband with a photo, and your husband was in it. Hearing this, I couldn't focus on job hunting. I looked at the social media post my friend shared. There was a photo of my ex-husband smiling with a young woman and a child, and my heart sank. Is this true? Are you okay? Yeah, it's true. Everything happened so suddenly. Where are you now? For now, I'm at my parents'. Good, you're not alone. I was worried. Sorry to worry you. Don't be. I'll let you know if I find out anything else. Thanks. After hanging up, I stared at the photo on social media, wondering if my daughter and I were sacrificed for their happiness. It's one thing for me to go through this, but Emily too. I felt tears coming but held them back in public. I went to a nearby park and sat on a bench, lost in thought. Why has this happened? Despite my instincts telling me not to look, curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself scrolling through the past posts. The mistress's social media didn't show my ex-husband's face, but there were plenty of posts that made it clear they were together. If I had investigated for infidelity, there would have been plenty of evidence. My lack of engagement with social media was a blind spot. I was so oblivious for such a long time. During our marriage, I was blissfully unaware, believing we had a happy, ordinary family life. I thought my ex-husband adored Emily, but recalling the conversation when he announced the divorce, I realized it wasn't true. The one who suffers the most is Emily. I shouldn't be so down. Before I knew it, I had spent 2 hours in the park, lost in thought. I decided to head home. When I got home, my parents had prepared dinner, but I had no appetite and told them I wasn't feeling well before returning to my room. Will time heal the pain of this situation? As I lay in bed, Emily came into my room. Mommy, are you going to sleep? Seeing her face brought tears to my eyes, and I hugged her tightly. Then Emily patted my head, saying, It's okay, Mommy. Her innocent gesture gave me strength, and I felt a bit more positive. Emily, Mommy will make sure you're happy. Yeah. She probably didn't understand what I meant, but with Emily, I felt like we could overcome anything. That was the day I started to feel hope again. Fast forward 15 years. Now, my income has increased, and I've managed to build a small single-story house. Emily has grown into a reliable high school student who even helps me out. Our mother-daughter relationship is strong, almost like friends, spending time together. One day, I received a call from an unknown number. Due to my work, I often get calls from clients, so without any suspicion, I answered. A familiar voice was on the other end. Hello? Hey, long time no see. I instantly recognized the voice as my ex-husband's, and immediately regretted picking up the phone. Do you need something? Do I need something? That's pretty cold. Still poor, are you? If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Wait. I'm offering to get back together with you. What? I was stunned by his incomprehensible statement. It was clear he hadn't grown at all in these 15 years. I'm saying I'll support you again since you're probably still poor. No, thank you. I'm not interested. It's impossible. Don't be so stubborn. Goodbye. I hung up without further discussion. He kept calling back, but I ignored it, and then he started emailing me. You need money, don't you? Listen to me. You still love me, right? I'm saying I'll be with you. You're not in a position to ignore me. Answer me. Even my old classmates who used to be wild have probably settled down by now. But this man seemed stuck in time. I felt a chill of disgust and rubbed my arms when Emily approached me. Mom, are you okay? Are you cold? No, I'm totally fine. If you say so. I couldn't let Emily know about this. She would be hurt to know her father was such a person. I deleted the texts from my ex-husband and blocked him. I also blocked his number so he couldn't contact me anymore. But a few days later, an unknown number called me. Assuming it was nothing to worry about, I answered. Hello? Nancy. Is it true you've blocked John? It was my former mother-in-law. I sighed heavily. Please, we're strangers now. I'd prefer not to be contacted. What are you talking about? You're going to be his wife again. What? No, I'm not. How can you say that? John is forgiving you. What for? There's nothing I need forgiveness for. You were useless, and that's why he left you. He's forgiving you for that. This conversation is going nowhere. Goodbye. Wait a minute. I hung up again without hesitation. And immediately blocked her number too. Mom, are you okay? You've been getting weird calls lately. What do you mean? Have you been getting strange calls? Emily is sharp. But I couldn't worry her, so I brushed it off. I have a lot of clients. Work can be tough, you know. Okay. But let me know if something's up. Thanks. I considered changing my phone number, which I hadn't changed in over 15 years, but I hesitated. Changing it would mean notifying clients and various agencies, not to mention Emily might get worried. The stress from the constant calls from my ex-husband and former mother-in-law using different numbers kept mounting. Then, one weekend, I received a call from an unknown landline. A quick internet search revealed it was from a wedding venue. A wedding venue? I don't have any clients there. As I pondered calling back, the phone rang again, so I answered. Hello? Your daughter's wedding is starting. Hurry up and come. I recognized the voice as my ex-husband's, but couldn't understand what he meant. Seriously, you're useless. If you hurry, you can still make it. What? Don't want me. What kind of parent misses their daughter's wedding? I glanced over at Emily, lounging on the sofa with her smartphone. Thinking it was a serious case of a wrong number, I told him so. I think you have the wrong number. Don't play dumb. You're Nancy, aren't you? Huh? That makes even less sense. I'm talking about my daughter's wedding. Emily is still in high school. What? Emily is still in high school. What are you talking about? No, I mean, my daughter's wedding. Your daughter? Yes. She's my child, so she's your child too. That makes no sense. Emily is my only child. Goodbye. Wait. I hung up, but he called back immediately. I could almost picture him hijacking the wedding venue's phone. It seems his attitude of caring only about himself, regardless of how it affects others, is still very much alive. What do you want now? Stop bothering me. Don't hang up. Just come to White Garden Chapel. Why would I, a stranger, go there? Don't you have a wife? Yeah, but she left. She's not coming to our daughter's wedding. It's embarrassing not to have a mother at the wedding, so you do it. His words connected the dots. His current wife had left him, and his desperate in-laws were trying to rope me in as a replacement. So that's it. Yes. So, hurry up. Why would I come? There's no way I would. Why not? If we're getting back together, then my daughter is your daughter too. I have no intention of getting back together with you, even if the world turns upside down. Why not? Don't be stubborn. You can escape poverty. Thanks for the concern, but I'm not living in poverty anymore. What? I don't need someone whose only merit is money. Could you please bother someone else? How dare you speak to me like that? As my ex-husband continued to shout, Emily smoothly took the smartphone from my hand. Turning around, I saw her standing there, putting the phone to her ear. Hey, what's going on? Hi. This is Emily. What, Emily? It's your dad. Your voice is so loud, I could hear it even without the phone. Who do you think you are? What? Emily? Oh. Emily. It's your dad. I don't have a dad. And seriously, aren't you embarrassed at your age? Even a high schooler like me can see how ridiculous you're being. How dare you? You know, Mom raised me all by herself because of your selfish actions. And now you come back with all this nonsense. Emily. Oh, sorry. Got a bit carried away with my lively friends. Hey, how about I come to the wedding with them? We'll liven things up. Damn it, no. I want your mother to come. Well, she said no, right? Seriously, I never want to grow up to be like you. I'll just spread the word on social media. Damn it. Put your mom back on. So persistent. By the way, where is this wedding venue? Hello? Oh, the call ended. Emily's strong response seemed to have ended the call from my ex-husband. Emily, watch your language, okay? Sorry. But I only talk like that when I'm really angry. You're not seriously considering going to that wedding, right? No way. I'm not that free. Emily, you knew about your father. Yeah, I overheard Grandma and Mom talking about it once. I'm sorry. Why apologize? You did nothing wrong divorcing him. I'm happy with just you, Grandma, and Grandpa. Emily. If he were still my dad, I'd probably be a mess. Maybe so. Mom, you have always tried to avoid causing me any trouble, right? You've been careful not to worry me, and I know that. It makes me happy, but I want to worry about you too, Mom. I want to help you. Don't make me cry. I'm good at arguing. If he bothers us again, I'll chase him away. I realized how much Emily had grown without me knowing. I used to feel guilty and was prepared for her to blame me about her father one day. But she grew up so strong and kind. My choices weren't wrong, and that thought comforted me. That day, thanks to Emily, no more calls came, and we had no idea what happened at the wedding, nor did we care. We cooked together and spent the day joyfully as usual. A few days later, my ex-husband, unable to contact me, called my parents home, and my mother called me. Hey, you're not planning on getting back together with John, right? Of course not. That's a relief. John just called our house. He did? To our home? Yes. He was talking about getting back together with you. Really? Did he say anything else? Your father took the phone and shouted at him, and then the call ended abruptly. After ending the call with my mother, I contemplated what to do next. John had now started to trouble my parents' home. I thought he wouldn't bother me further since he didn't know my current address, but my parents' house was different. John knew where it was, and ignoring him might lead him to show up there. Reluctantly, I decided to contact him to resolve this once and for all. Hello. Finally decided to come to your senses? How can I make you understand that it's over? What are you saying? Our new start is just beginning. No, it's not happening, no matter what you say. And stop contacting my parents' home. I realized I had to firmly sever this harmful connection since he refused to give up and kept involving others. Just come back and help around the house. I need someone to do the chores. Hire a housekeeper. I need someone to cook. Get takeout. I'm tired of takeout. Then go out to eat. No matter what he said, I countered instantly, but he refused to give up. I wished he would channel this persistence elsewhere. What's your problem? If I apologize, will you come back? No. Do you understand English? No means no, regardless of the situation. Then, I'll pay you to do the housework and cooking, okay? I don't need your money. I still love you. That's just creepy. Please, I'm lonely living alone. Go back to your parents' home. They're not an option. Live with your daughter and her husband? They refused. Just give it up, okay? As we talked, John became increasingly despondent. I wondered who would want to be with someone so childish and prideful. Why did your wife leave? She found someone else. That's karma for you. Realizing his actions had come full circle, John fell silent. I told him, money is attractive, but it's sad when that's all a person has. You should really reflect on yourself. He started sobbing on the phone. Seeing how pathetic he was, I felt relieved we were divorced. So, please don't involve us anymore. What? Wait! You're the one who abandoned this family, remember? There's a limit to being convenient, right? Well, yes, but I'm trying to make amends. Then you're going about it all wrong. Why? Making amends shouldn't involve causing more trouble. Instead of doing this, why not look for your wife who left? Don't be so cold. I've looked for her. She's with another man and asked for a divorce. Whatever her reasons, that doesn't justify you trying to latch onto us again. What if I refuse? If you keep harassing us, I'll report you to the police. Police, really? That's an overreaction. I'm serious. Goodbye. I hung up and took a deep breath. Dealing with him was exhausting. To unwind, Emily and I went out for a meal and then to karaoke to let off steam. Mom, I'm on your side, just like you've always been on mine. Thanks, sweetie. Now let's sing. Having Emily with me, I felt fearless. John's actions only made me realize how happy we were without him. 2 months later. After that exchange, the calls and messages from my former in-laws suddenly stopped, and peaceful days returned. But then, a text arrived from John. I need to talk. Contact me. Unusually, he sent just one email, different from his persistent phone calls before. Feeling slightly uneasy about this change, I replied, I'll listen via text. My family's business went bankrupt. Okay. I need you to return the property division, alimony, and child support I paid you. What? Reading the message from my ex-husband, I couldn't help but exclaim aloud. The idea of returning the property division, alimony, and child support was unheard of and absurd. The debts are huge, and I'm in real trouble. It's impossible. That money was originally mine. I want it back. The property division and alimony were my rights, and child support is Emily's right. But I was the source of that money. That was the path you chose. He tried calling as our text exchange continued. But expecting another pointless conversation, I ignored it. Anticipating he might contact my parents next, I informed my mother beforehand. Let me talk over the phone. No. I'm really in trouble, it's not a lie. True or false, that money now belongs to us. I can't give it back. As I continued emailing with my ex-husband, my phone kept ringing with calls from unknown numbers. Likely his parents. Will my phone's battery last through all this? I mused lightheartedly while replying to the emails and ignoring the incessant calls. My mother wants to talk to you. No. Can't you even talk? No. If you don't respond, I might come to your house. Is that a threat? Not a threat, but I could threaten if needed. The unexpected nature of his reply almost made me laugh. It was bewildering to think what kind of mindset would lead someone to believe that threatening was an acceptable approach. So, it's okay for me to interpret that as a threat? If it makes you return the money, then I'll proceed to the police. Holding my smartphone, I headed straight to the police station. Meanwhile, the notification sounds for texts and incoming calls continued to ring. At the station, I recounted everything to the police officers, who repeatedly asked if what I said was really true. They seemed unable to comprehend John's actions and words. Fortunately, due to my work habits, I had recordings of our conversations. Playing these for the officers left them dumbfounded. They sympathized, saying it must have been really tough, and agreed to issue a warning to John. After that, there were no more contacts from John, and I finally felt a sense of closure. But about a month later, Emily approached me, saying she needed to talk. We sat down in the living room, and she showed me her smartphone. Look at this! I saw that John had contacted her on her social media. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Just read everything first. Following Emily's lead, I scrolled through the messages and found this conversation. Emily? It's Dad. How are you? It's been a while. What do you need? I need you to persuade your mom. I'm in a tough spot financially. So, if we pay you, you'll cut ties with us for good? Yes. I promise. You're smart, Emily. I'm so happy. Give me some time, then. Okay, but contact me as soon as possible. Okay. A week passed without contact, sorry. Where are you now? Emily! You're late. What about the money? First, I need to know where you are to give you anything. I have a gift for you too. A gift? You're quite thoughtful for her daughter. I'm in a city, D-town. Got it. Let's meet next Monday at the diner in D-town. All right. How about 10 a.m.? Sounds good. Bye. The messages ended there. What does this mean? Did you promise to give him money? Did you actually meet him? No, look at this next post. Emily took the phone, navigated to a post, and handed it back to me. When I looked at the smartphone, there was a screen displaying a certain post. Marriage scammer arrested? Mom, you don't use social media, so you didn't know he was being sought for marriage fraud. What? Apparently, he was on the run for marriage fraud. It was all over social media. But the police didn't mention this when I consulted them. Maybe the complaint hadn't been filed then. Besides, would the police really tell you we're after him for marriage fraud? That makes sense. You're quite knowledgeable, Emily. Actually, many people learn things from social media these days. I had no idea. Anyway, after setting the meeting place, I contacted the police and the person who posted about him. It seems they caught him. You contributed to the investigation, Emily. Am I amazing or what? You are! Never underestimate a high school girl. But now, we're finally free of him, Mom. Yes. It ended up being a burden on you, but thanks to you, it's resolved. Thank you. No problem. Following John's arrest, there were no more contacts from him or his parents. Soon, we discovered that his parents had filed for bankruptcy. Emily and I discussed it and decided to change our phone numbers as a precaution. Although it was a bit of a hassle to notify everyone of the change, it felt refreshing to make such a clean break. This experience brought Emily and me even closer, leading to more open and frequent conversations. I used to think of her as just a child, but looking back, she has always been the one helping me. It wasn't just me raising Emily, in many ways, she was raising me too. We've planned a trip next month with my parents, a family vacation that both Emily and I are eagerly anticipating. It'll be fine. She won't notice anything. You're right. That kid is clueless. Let's enjoy this while we can. I've been holding back from her just for this day. It was during a midnight at our hot spring trip, when I woke up and went to the private open-air bath in the changing room. Peeking in because I heard voices, I saw my husband and sister getting intimate. Seeing that scene, I sat down right there, overwhelmed by intense nausea. I won't let this end here. I resolved, tears welling up in my eyes. I quickly switched my phone to video recording mode. I was determined to record everything they were doing. I wonder what she'd think if she saw us now. Hey, don't say such things. More importantly. Wait, hold on a second. Their voices echoed in the open-air bath. I wanted to cover my ears right away but held back and continued recording. But are you sure she won't wake up? Don't worry. I prepared for this day. Plus, I used that, so. Oh, right. Clever as always. Then we can stay here a bit longer. I hadn't thought they'd be this calculating. I wouldn't rest until I made them see hell. Then, an idea struck me. Don't think you'll lead a decent life after this. Enjoy it while you can. I collected their clothes and returned to the room. Wake up. I woke up the sleeping relatives and waited for the two with full readiness. Suppressing my raging emotions, I waited for them. What was about to unfold was a shameful show, too embarrassing to live through. My name is Natalie. I work at a small bookstore. I'm 35 years old now, but got married to Luke when I was 28. Our meeting was a bit strange. We had a mutual friend, who was supposed to introduce us to different people. Considering my age and thinking about marriage, I agreed to meet someone based on my friend's suggestion. I'm Natalie. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Huh? The meeting place was in front of the station, but a man different from the one in the photo I had received showed up. It was Luke. Moreover, Luke also didn't expect me to be his date. Since we're here, how about having dinner? Sounds good. There's a nice restaurant nearby. To be honest, he wasn't my type. Maybe Luke felt the same way. I just wanted to have the meal and go home quickly. But when we actually started talking, we hit it off, surprisingly. I never thought I'd meet someone else who likes the same author as me. It's a pretty obscure author. You're the first person I've met who likes them. Me too. After a few dinners together, we started dating. The friend who caused this mix-up apologized, but I thanked them instead. They probably didn't expect things to turn out this way. And then we got to the point of deciding to get married. Are you nervous? Of course I am. That day, we were going to greet my parents. When we arrived at my childhood home, someone I didn't want to see was there. Isn't that Natalie? Is he your boyfriend? Why are you here? Well, I just got divorced again. Again? I couldn't help but exclaim. Luke was also surprised by my reaction. We didn't get along. But look at him, he's a good catch. Why don't you dump Natalie and marry me instead? Hey. Just kidding. Don't be so mad. My sister Angela had been divorced twice, including this time. After that, we greeted my parents. And as we were about to leave. Would you like to exchange contact information? Huh? All right, I guess. I agreed, not wanting to have much to do with my sister. Little did I know it would lead to such an ending. After greeting my parents, Luke and I submitted our marriage certificate on my birthday a week later. Until then, we had been living together at my place, but now it was finally moving day to our new home. I'm ready on my end, how about you? Just a bit more. What? The movers will be here soon. I'll finish up quickly. That's when I first realized how messy Luke could be. When we were dating, we moved in together quite early, and I ended up doing a lot of things for him. I never imagined it would be this bad. In the end, I helped him, and we barely finished packing in time. I couldn't help but wonder if we could really make it work. Upon arriving at our new home, he said, "Sorry about earlier. I found a book I wanted to read." Well, I understand wanting to read, but please be more careful next time. I will. But Luke's attitude never changed. He started making more excuses. And he wouldn't do anything unless I nagged him. Moreover, he wouldn't even manage the finances, and I had to put money in the account for our monthly payments. You didn't put money in the account again, did you? Ah, I forgot. He was absorbed in his book, not even looking at me. Are you even listening? I am. I was getting irritated with Luke's attitude. Then I noticed something. Did you have that book before? A regular person might not have noticed, but being a book lover, I caught sight of it. Oh, this? I borrowed it from a friend. They recommended it. But still, you need to handle your responsibilities from next month. Luke sighed, closed his book, and looked at me. I'm busy with work too. If you're going to complain so much, why don't you do everything yourself? It'll save you the irritation. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And then Luke started saying something even more outrageous. If that happens, it'll be you who pays, not me. So, you should provide the money. Why would it work that way? We're a married couple, it's normal to support each other, right? Anyway, I'm counting on you. Saying that, Luke opened his book again and resumed reading. I was speechless with disbelief. Just 4 months into our marriage, we were far from happy. Then came our first Obon festival since getting married. The day after tomorrow is Thanksgiving, you can come too, right, Luke? Yeah, huh? Where to? What do you mean where? I told you before. This year we're getting together at my parents' place. Oh right, you might have mentioned that. He seemed so detached. We're leaving the morning after tomorrow, so be ready. It was as I was about to go back to my room. I'm not going. I don't want to. What? It's a hassle. I'll just stay home. What are you talking about? It's none of my business. You go ahead. My fists clenched automatically. Could I really expect anything from Luke? In the end, I didn't push it and decided to go back home alone. Well, I'm leaving then. Take care of the house, okay? I'm not planning to go out anyway. So I left the house. Honestly, I thought it was easier if he just stayed in, rather than going out and causing trouble. And then it hit me. Are we really a couple? Before I knew it, I had reached my parents' house. I'm home. Welcome back. I had completely forgotten. My sister was at this house. It was my parents' decision to keep an eye on her. I hurried to my room to avoid unnecessary entanglement. Where's Luke? Oh, he's a bit busy with work. I lied on the spot. I thought she would stir up trouble if I told her the truth. Really? What do you mean? I just wondered if it's really work. I thought she was too perceptive. To prevent any slip-ups, I changed the subject. By the way, Angela, Dad told me you recently got a boyfriend. He seemed to sigh about it. Yeah, that's right. He's younger and cute. I thought I had asked too much. Then Angela started her monologue. And at the end, she said something intriguing. He also loves books, just like me. Really? I casually brushed it off at that moment, but then I remembered. It was Angela's influence that made me love books and work at a bookstore. That's the only thing I'm thankful to her for. Grandpa's memorial service ended without incident, and it was time to go back. Say hi to Luke for me. Yeah, sure. Then a big change occurred. About a year after getting married, during a family gathering at New Year's, Angela made a sudden proposal. How about we all go to a spa this long weekend? Maybe an overnight trip? Our parents looked at each other, wondering what to do. But there was one person who was unusually excited. That sounds great. Let's all go. I hadn't seen Luke so lively in a long time. Since we hadn't really gone on any trips since getting married, he probably agreed with Angela's suggestion. Mom and Dad are okay with it, right? Yes. Yeah, sure. Our parents were persuaded by Angela. So Angela, Luke, and I started planning together. Let's get started then. I'm counting on you, Luke. Leave it to me. And you too, Natalie. Then Angela began visiting our house more often under the pretext of planning. Thinking about what she was doing behind my back makes me furious. We started preparing for the trip a month later. It was going to be us, our parents, and some close relatives. Getting accommodation for so many people might be tough. It'll be fine. Luke was unusually enthusiastic. You're that excited about the trip? Trip? Oh, yeah, of course, I am. Okay then. The doorbell rang while we were talking. I wasn't expecting any visitors today. When I checked the monitor, there was Angela. I quickly went to the door. Why are you here? Huh? Didn't you hear? I came for the trip planning today. I didn't know about that. Well, let me in for now. She had visited before, but each time she seemed less and less reserved. In the living room, Angela and Luke were already engrossed in travel magazines. This seemed odd to me. Wait a minute. What's up? No, first explain today. It's hard to follow if you just go ahead. Angela and Luke exchanged looks. With an expression of what are you talking about? That's right, I forgot to tell Angela called. You forgot? Angela intervened. It's okay. He just forgot. Don't be so uptight. Sorry about that. Luke's apologizing, so let's just get on with the discussion. Somehow, I felt like the bad guy. I felt like an outsider in my own home. From then on, Angela started coming over every 3 days until the trip. It was overwhelming. Eventually, most of the trip planning was decided by just the two of them. Finally, the day of the trip arrived. We were supposed to meet at the station and travel by bullet train with the whole family. While I was enjoying catching up with relatives, I noticed Angela and Luke were missing. Where are Luke and Angela? Huh? They were here just a moment ago. They returned about 10 minutes later. They looked like a couple. Amidst the strange commotion, our trip began. Luke, where are you going? Oh, I'm actually going around with Angela. With Angela? Yeah, I've been here before, so she asked me to show her around. Hearing this, the trip I was looking forward to suddenly lost its appeal. Then you two have fun. It's a good opportunity. Okay, I'll go then. Saying that, Luke ran off. I couldn't remember the last time I saw him smile like that when he was with me. That night, I tried to forget the day's events by drinking a lot of beer, which made me unusually sleepy. Come on, let's go back to the room and rest. You drank too much. I'm fine. Come on, let's go back to the room and rest. I remember being led back to the room by Luke from the restaurant. However, my memory from there is hazy. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I was alone in the room. Staggering up, I headed to the open-air bath to sober up. It's okay. She won't notice. You're right. She's clueless anyway. Let's enjoy this moment. I've been holding back from doing it with her just for this day. As I entered the changing area, I noticed something was off. I heard voices. It was supposed to be reserved, so it had to be family or someone. There were Luke and Angela, getting cozy. The sight made me sit down and feel violently nauseous. Did you hear something? Everyone's asleep. It must be your imagination. Right. I won't let this go. I'm determined. Tears filled my eyes as I decided. I switched my phone to video recording mode. I was determined to record everything they were doing. Their unbearable conversation reached my ears. What would she think if she saw us now? Don't jinx it. Besides. Wait a sec. Their voices echoed in the open-air bath. I wanted to cover my ears but forced myself to keep recording. But is she really not going to wake up? It's fine. I've prepared for this day, and besides, I used that. That's right. You're amazing. So, we can stay a bit longer? I couldn't believe how calculated they were. I was curious about what Angela meant by that, but I had more pressing matters. I can't rest until I show those two the hell they deserve. Then, an idea struck me. Thinking they can lead a normal life after this? They'd better enjoy while they can. I gathered all their clothes left in the changing room and casually returned to my room. Hey, wake up! I roused all the sleeping relatives in another room, asking them to gather in ours. What's going on at this hour? Why is everyone here? I have something very important to discuss, so please be ready to listen. I said, looking around at the relatives. Important matter? By the way, I don't see Luke and Angela. I played the video I recorded in the open-air bath. The room filled with their conversation and sounds. Natalie, what is this about? Just watch the phone. Everyone's attention was on the smartphone. This is. Can't believe those two. Everyone let out almost scream-like voices. Now you see? They used this trip for their purpose. But what do we do now? I have a plan. I told the relatives. We all waited for the two to return. My anger simmering, anticipating their arrival. It would be a show too shameful to live down. 30 minutes later. They returned wrapped in bath towels. What's this? Natalie, you're awake! They had nowhere to run. Plus, they were almost naked. They couldn't do anything even if they left this room. Then my father took the lead. Both of you, sit down here. Wait, Dad, let us get dressed first. But Dad dismissed Angela's suggestion. No need for that. Just sit down and be quiet. Dad's face was like a demon, something I had never seen before. Intimidated by the situation, Luke and Angela obediently sat down on their knees. Natalie, play the video. Yeah. I played the video. Nothing would be more embarrassing than to see our own actions under public scrutiny. What's this, I wonder? I asked, suppressing my rage with a gentle voice. The two were visibly trembling. Probably terrified of what was coming. You've been silent long enough. I prompted. Luke was the first to break the silence. It was just a moment of weakness. Please forgive me, Natalie. He pleaded, his bath towel slipping off, revealing his nakedness as he lay face down. A moment of weakness, huh? But this isn't the first time, is it? No use hiding it now. I was approached right after we got married. I have a book to lend you, she said. That's when it hit me. The unfamiliar book he had was from Angela. And after that? After that we went to have a dinner. Luke stammered, unable to speak fluently. His behavior only confirmed my disappointment in him. Just spit it out. Then, we went to a hotel. He finally confessed. Not that it changed my decision to forgive him. So, this is an affair, right? How do you plan to take responsibility? I don't know. Next, I confronted Angela. And you, Angela, how could you do something like this? It's so embarrassing that the naked woman in front of me is my sister. Angela, who had been silent, suddenly lashed out. I don't want to hear it from you, boring, ugly, always buried in books. Her true feelings, it seemed. Honestly, I had had enough of her torment over the years. Now it was my turn. You're brave, but do you realize your current situation? What are you trying to say? We're surrounded by close relatives, some in responsible positions. What are you planning? Well, living a normal life might not be an option anymore. You're unbelievable. Angela shot me a hateful glare. But I had no intention of holding back against her any longer. It seemed our parents had also reached their limit with her arrogant attitude. I'm ashamed to say she's our eldest daughter. Having divorced twice was already a headache. We kept you at home to keep an eye on you, but it's clear that's not working. Frankly, we don't want a daughter who brings us such shame. I had asked them to say something like this beforehand. They were simply carrying out the plan. Are you saying you're going to kick me out of the house? It's not just that. We're also cutting ties with you. If that happened, you'd have nothing left. What? That means you won't inherit anything from us. You'll be a stranger. But just because you disown me doesn't mean I lose my inheritance rights. She was technically right. Just declaring disownment wouldn't change anything legally. But I had already thought of that. That's true. So we've decided to include it in our wills. Everything will be inherited by Natalie. Angela stood there, her mouth agape, frozen in shock. It's a shame, but you should give up. If not for this, you might have inherited our extensive lands. Our family's home is a generational farm with lands in various places. You're kidding, right? Tell me you're kidding. There's nothing we can do now. We all just discussed and decided on it. All the relatives present nodded in agreement. And don't think this is the end. You'll have to face the consequences of your affair. And Luke, too. What? Obviously, I can't live with a husband who had an affair with my sister. That means... Yes, we're getting a divorce. Oh, no. Luke buried his face in his hands and began to cry. Then, I had one last question for Angela. Angela, what was that thing you mentioned in the bath? Check my bag, and you'll understand. I searched her bag and found a small packet. It was a sleeping pill. They were prescribed to someone other than Angela. Angela must have asked someone she knew to obtain the sleeping pills for her. Did you plan to drug everyone? No, only Natalie. That explains why I felt so sick. I realized. Then, an idea struck me. Why don't you try this? Have a taste. What are you saying? It's nothing strange. You gave them to me, after all. I made them take the sleeping pills. Soon, without any resistance, both succumbed to sleep. Is this really okay, Natalie? Don't worry, Dad. I've heard of this medicine before. Okay, then. I remembered reading about this exact medication in a book. Without such knowledge, I wouldn't have dared such a reckless act. If Angela hadn't mentioned it in the open-air bath, I might never have noticed its existence. I felt lucky in that sense. As morning arrived. This is what we'll do, right? Yes. Let's go back home. We left Luke and Angela behind at the inn. I wondered what they would think when they woke up. The thought made me want to laugh. Upon reaching home, I quickly packed only the essentials. I was about to leave for a hotel when I received a call. Hello, where are you now? At home. What? It was from Angela. Angela must have been shocked to find everyone gone when she woke up. Oh, and you'll need to pay for the stay. Why should I have to? Do you think you're in any position to say that? Our roles had reversed. Well, if you don't like it, that's fine. But who knows what might happen? I warned her before she hung up. She probably called to complain but got scared off. The hardest part was yet to come. Dealing with the fallout of the affair, the disownment, and the impending events. Just thinking about it cleared my mind. Hi, Luke. I had one last thing to do. I called Luke. I'm in a bit of a mess right now. That's your problem, not mine anymore. Don't say that, Natalie. There's no way I'm returning to that house again. It's over. We can just mail the divorce papers, right? Please give me another chance. His selfishness was astounding. I could only be stunned. I'm done, Luke. You should just move on with Angela. Goodbye, I said firmly, cutting the call and setting my phone to block his number. Leaving the house, I immediately obtained divorce papers and headed straight to a lawyer's office recommended by my father. I wanted to close this chapter as quickly as possible. Thanks to my prompt action, the divorce was finalized within 2 weeks. The other day, Angela left. Yeah, but I think it's for the best. Indeed. Recently, I heard through mutual friends that Luke and Angela had started living together. They were probably licking each other's wounds, both of them now on the same boat. I also heard that Angela had been fired from her job after the incident got out. This outcome was precisely what I had anticipated. A normal life will probably be impossible for them now. Not that it concerns me anymore. As for me, I continued to be surrounded by books, my greatest passion. The only changes in my life were my newfound solitude and the start of writing my novel. Its central theme is family. I decided to embrace my freedom and live life on my own terms. My name is Kelly. I spend my days taking care of my children. My husband works late for our family. As a result, we hardly have any conversation as a couple. He's a refreshing salesman who's good at making people laugh. I think he's quite handsome. Life has been tough, but I've convinced myself this is happiness. Then one day, my sister-in-law Sarah came to me and said, "I'm in a relationship with your husband. I'm pregnant, so please divorce him." Huh? I didn't know what she was talking about and didn't know what to say. Stunned, I just opened my mouth and stared at Sarah. She kept on, desperately pleading with me. "Please! I love your husband. I'm carrying his baby. So, divorce him." The word divorce kept repeating. I couldn't understand what she was saying. "Are you sure it's my husband's baby?" "Yes. Because we're in love." "But Sarah, you're married to my brother Josh, right? It might be his baby." "No, it should be Josh's baby." "I'm a mother. I know whose baby it is," she insisted, which just made it more troubling. She was admitting to an affair. Does she not realize it's infidelity? "How long have you and my husband been together?" 2 years. 2 years? Why? I didn't see you two in that way." Despite my confusion, a part of me was calm. I hated that I could be so composed in such a situation. 2 years ago, I came to see you for something, but you weren't there. It was just your children and him. He listened to me then, and I thought, what a kind man. Gradually, as he continued to listen to my problems, I fell for him, and before I knew it, we were in a relationship. Just like that. I understand there are issues with my husband, but you shouldn't have let it happen, right? You can't stop love. Oh, okay. So, divorce him, she said, presenting a blank divorce form. Why are you bringing the divorce papers? You know, strike while the iron is hot. This is a matter between husband and wife. I mused, recalling the past. Why did my husband get involved with Sarah? He was always kind and cheerful, thinking of the family. Come to think of it, I met him at work, where we grew close after sharing our troubles. Sarah did the same. Back then, I felt victorious dating a kind and handsome man like him. But after getting married, I realized it was all an illusion. Just a week into our marriage, I found out he had kids. His parents had been taking care of them, but they came to live with us after our marriage. 5 children in total. My life as a mother started as if I'd been deceived. The feeling of being a newlywed was blown away, replaced by tirelessly running around for the sake of the children. Their ages ranged from 10 to 1. As a new mother with no experience, I panicked countless times. My husband, always late, would just say it's part of being a parent. I barely had time for myself, losing my identity as a woman. Looking at married friends, they all seemed happy, but the person I saw in the mirror looked much older than my age. My hair was unkempt, and I had no time for makeup. It felt like I got married just to take care of children. Was this really married life? How many times have I pondered over this tiring life? I couldn't help but be tired of such a life. Yet, the children were adorable, calling me mom and clinging to me, crying not to hate them. Gradually, I became a mother amidst the chaos. And now, to hear my husband had an affair. I was suffering, raising his children, while he was out playing around, claiming to work for the family, but in reality, just a man driven by his desire, trusting everything to me while he enjoyed life. Somehow, anger welled up inside me. Still, it's ironic that I, the older sister, am the cheated wife and my brother is the cheated husband. We're quite the pair. Unaware of my thoughts, Sarah hands me a pen. So prepared. Please, divorce him for his sake, mine, and the baby's.
What about my brother?
Huh?
Have you told my brother about the baby?
Not yet.
Why not?
Well, if you don't divorce, I can't marry him. If I can't marry, I'll have to raise this child alone. I don't want that. So I think it's best to tell my husband after your divorce is finalized and Josh agrees to marry me. How selfish. She only thinks of herself. Why did my husband choose such a woman? And why did my brother love her? Am I that much worse than her? Hey, you don't need to think so hard. Just divorce him. I'm 7 years younger than you. I think I'm more suited for him. I want to hit her. For a moment, I wanted to tear her apart, but the quietly listening kids must be eavesdropping. Unable to fight in front of them, I bite my lip. I'm pregnant, so it's only natural for you to divorce, Sarah says, smiling. Staring at her, I finally say, fine. Really? You'll divorce? Yes, I'll divorce. But being a mother of 5 is tough. Good luck. Huh? The one who gave birth should raise them. I didn't give birth to any of them.
What do you mean?
She's puzzled. Apparently, she wants to marry him without knowing anything. They're all his children with his ex-wife. As soon as I married, I became a mother of 5. There are so many kids, I can barely manage them, let alone have my own.
Wait, his ex-wife had all 5?
No, each from a different mother.
That means...
Right, he divorces after a while when a baby is born. Be careful not to end up divorced after giving birth.
That's...
By the way, since my brother doesn't know, I should tell him soon.
No, it's okay, I'll tell him later.
That won't do. You're talking about remarrying Josh as soon as I divorce. Women can't remarry for 6 months, you know. While saying this, I called my brother. Sarah is desperately trying to stop me, but I don't understand why. But now, her feelings don't matter. When the call connects, I tell my brother everything. He's shocked. Understandably. I panicked too. But like me, he calmly chooses divorce. Good for you. You can marry Josh once the divorce finalized. You'll be a mother of 6.
6?
The baby in your belly.
6 kids.
Good for you. After marriage, you'll mostly care for kids and hardly talk to your husband, I say, picking up the pen and starting to sign on the divorce papers. Just then, my unsuspecting husband returns home. I'm home. He's always cheerful. Oh, you're early. Yeah, I managed to leave early. Maybe you knew Sarah was here.
What? Why is she here?
She came to ask for a divorce. So, here. I showed him the completed divorce papers. Just fill in your part, and we're done.
No, I can't. Why is this happening?
Because it's been discovered you had an affair. Sarah's pregnant with your baby.
That's ridiculous. What about the kids?
They're all your children, aren't they? Sarah will be a good mother to them.
They will miss you.
It's what you've done. Sure, it's hard to leave them, but it can't be helped. If it's hard to leave the kids, why don't you take them all? Then I can enjoy my newlywed life with Josh. Life's not that easy. These kids aren't legally my adopted children. I can't just take them with me like pets.
That's true. They're attached to you and see you as their mother. But leaving them, what does that mean? You can't do that if you think about the kids, can you?
It's rich hearing that from you, the one who had an affair. Using the kids as a shield after your infidelity. You chose Sarah, and she's pregnant with your child. There's nothing more I can do. Fine, I'll give you the kids, take them with you. Are you sure about this person? Well, it's too late now. It's both of your problems. I was betrayed and abandoned, so I won't say anymore. Good luck.
Wait, Kelly, I don't want a divorce.
My husband shouts, but I can't imagine staying with someone who betrayed me. I leave and drive to my parents' house, thinking of the sad kids. I thought everything was over. But it seems my husband didn't want it to end. The next day, he shows up at my parents' house.
I'm sorry, Kelly. I did have a physical relationship with Sarah. But I never meant to betray you.
Huh?
Just because there was a physical relationship doesn't mean my heart wasn't with you and the kids.
What are you talking about? That's exactly what infidelity is. While claiming to work, you were cozy with another woman. I can't imagine staying with you.
Don't say that. The kids have been so sad since you left. They've never looked this lonely before.
Stop using the kids like that. It's cowardly.
But it's true.
What's true? You cheated while I was busy with the kids.
I didn't mean to. You know what they say, a man who doesn't eat what's served is a shame.
What era are you living in? If that's a man's shame, isn't cheating a husband's shame? Think about it. I'm a desirable man. You're lucky to have a husband like me.
Huh? Don't joke. I'm too busy with the kids to even put on makeup. My hair's a mess chasing after them every day.
That's exactly it. I look outside because I'm attracted to beautiful things. You had a part in this too.
What?
You've lost your femininity. Once you became a mother, you lost your charm. That's why I wanted to be with other women. It's not just my problem.
What? Whose fault do you think it is? It's because you had 5 kids. Being a mother leaves no time for myself.
But I keep myself clean and go to the barber every month. If you try, you can do it too.
You have time because you don't play with the kids or care for them.
Don't yell. I admit I was wrong. But you were happy, right? You get to see a handsome man like me every day. I'll give that happiness to Sarah. No, I refuse her. It was just a fling. I never intended to marry her. What are you saying? You even had a child with her. That's the thing. Is it really my child? I've never made a mistake like that. It's strange that she got pregnant. I don't care. I'm offering you a remarriage with your mistress. But I prefer a girlfriend like Sarah for an affair. For marriage, I want someone like you, Kelly. I can't trust anyone else with my home. You mean you can't trust anyone else with your seed? Yeah, you're clever, Kelly.
You!
Don't make that face. It'll add wrinkles. Enough. You can remarry a woman 7 years younger, go home. Sarah wants you to take the kids.
It's not about giving or receiving.
True, but I think it's okay if Kelly takes them. I have to work and can't care for them. If you really want me to take them, pay me $7,000 a month.
Why?
Child support, $1,400 per child.
That leaves me with $500. Impossible.
Then find someone else to care for them. I'm not continuing the life I had before. What life? A housekeeper.
No, you're a proper mother.
Don't joke. You sow your seeds and are satisfied. You made me give up being a woman, treating me like a housekeeper. I refuse. You're remarrying Sarah, let her do it.
I don't intend to remarry her.
Josh insists, but since he got Sarah pregnant, he has to take responsibility. I kicked him out, yelling never to contact me again. But a few days later, Sarah called.
Hey, take the kids already.
They're not my children, so I have no obligation to take them. They're going to be yours, so you better take care of them.
This isn't a joke. Why should I start parenting now when I'm not even married?
Starting to practice now rather than after the baby's born is better, isn't it?
Stop joking. I'm pregnant.
So what? You think pregnant women don't parent? Moms around the world have 2, 3 kids. Meaning, they parent even while pregnant. But it's my first. I started at 0. I became a mother right after marrying without any experience. If I could do it, so can you. You're even more experienced, being pregnant. Your husband is mine, but I don't want the kids. You can't have a husband and not the kids. That's not how it works. Too naive. Look, I'm pregnant and feel sick. I'm nauseous all the time. Nauseous yet you could bring a divorce paper and ask for a divorce? If it's that bad, you shouldn't have been able to do that. It was easier back then. You wouldn't understand, you've never been pregnant. Sure. Just now, I got punched in my belly. You knew he had kids and still took him. That means you expected this. You chose this. Who expects to be punched in the belly of a pregnant woman? It happens with kids. One cries while you're holding another, or they scribble on the floor with pens when you look away. What's with these kids? It's good they're energetic. I can't joke about this continuing after marriage. It's not a joke, it will continue. No way. Even if you say no, it's inevitable. This is reality. Your choice. I'll give them all to you. Then you'll pay $7,000 a month? What? $7,000 for what? Child support. Raising kids costs money. That's the expected amount. How much does he earn? About $8,000, I think. $8,000? If I give you $7,000, I'm left with only $1,000. Yep. I can't live like that. Exactly. So you have to take care of the kids. I'm divorced now. Then, come here and take care of them. I see. Then I'd need a salary. You'll probably want me to do housework too. So, $8,000 for a housekeeper and babysitter. Not the whole thing. Of course. Housekeeping and childcare are tough. That's why only people with money can hire someone. Why should I pay my ex-wife that much? I'm a stranger now. I need to earn a living. If I work there, that's the salary I need. That's impossible. You know it's impossible and you're saying it on purpose. It's a reasonable amount considering the workload. If you don't like it, do it yourself. This isn't what I expected. Too late now. You're pregnant with his child. Accept it. Sarah kept repeating she didn't expect this, but I had no intention of helping her. I just prayed the kids wouldn't suffer. Later, Josh contacted me, which surprised me since we're divorced. But after hearing him out, I understood. I have a long business trip. I asked Sarah to watch the kids, but I'm worried. Can you check on them? Josh's parents live far away, so they can't help. That's why he asked me. I didn't want to agree, but for the kids' sake, I couldn't refuse. A couple of days after Josh left, I went to check and was shocked by the state of things. I took photos and sent them to Josh. What's this all about? Your house. What the heck is this? It's a natural reaction. The room is a mess, dark, with the 5 kids clustered together, sitting blankly. Where's Sarah? She's not here. Since when? She left right after you went on your business trip. So that's 2 whole days already? Yes. What about food? What have they been eating? They were told to eat whatever's in the fridge. But everything in there needs cooking. It's terrible to expect the kids to eat that. So where are the kids now? They're at my parents' house. They're attached to my mom. And where are you? I'm cleaning up here. I can't bring the kids back to this mess. I see, sorry. If Sarah comes back while I'm here, I plan to give her a piece of my mind, but she probably won't return. She left those kids alone for 2 days. Yeah, I guess so. What are you going to do? What do you mean? Is just coming back from your trip enough? If you leave them with Sarah, who knows what'll happen to them? Can you look after them until I return? Don't joke. Can't you see I can't work like this? Okay, I get it.
I'll come back as soon as I can, though it might be late at night.
Late at night? Don't joke. Those kids are missing you. Come back now. All right, I'll try. After hanging up and arranging his work, Josh returns 4 hours later. But before picking up the kids from my parents, he said he'd talk to Sarah. I waited for Josh's return after tidying the room. Sorry, Kelly. Sorry isn't enough. Apologize to the kids. Yeah. I'll be clear with Sarah. Josh is usually all smiles, but this time he's dead serious. Then Sarah walks in through the front door. Josh, welcome back. And I'm home. She enters the room, surprised to see me and no kids. Where are the kids? They're at Kelly's parents' house. Oh, I see. Then why not just leave them there from now on? That way, I can enjoy married life with Josh. Where were you? At my own house. What? I thought I was with another man. Jealous? Don't joke. You left the kids alone to go back to your house? I couldn't stand just looking after the kids in a house without Josh. Besides, those kids punched me in the stomach even though I'm pregnant. I can't forgive that. They're all my kids. Exactly. So they're not mine. If Kelly keeps taking care of them, that's fine by me. Right, Kelly? Stop it. Can you really be a mother like that? It's okay. This child is mine and Josh's. Is it really my child? Of course. That's when Josh pulls out a document from a large envelope and places it in front of Sarah. The words DNA test are visible. The baby in your stomach isn't mine, right? Huh? I had it tested. Turns out it's not my child.
That's impossible. It's your child, Josh.
You're saying the test results are a lie?
I can't believe it. How can they test it before it's even born?
Nowadays, paternity can be tested during pregnancy.
That's a lie.
I always made sure to never make such a mistake, always being careful. So when I heard she was pregnant, I thought something was off. That's why I got it tested. Turns out, it's not my child.
What? Then whose child is it?
Must be Kelly's brother's. Or maybe some other guy's. Didn't think it'd be discovered. What do you mean? Well, Josh is more handsome and kinder, and his smile is exactly my type. I thought he was much better than him. When I got pregnant with that guy's child, I thought if I said it was Josh's, Kelly would divorce him and Josh would marry me. That's insane. I mean, we did have a relationship, so I thought it wouldn't be found out. I never intended to marry you. What? But I'm much younger than Kelly. Age doesn't matter. I can't marry a woman who'd leave the kids alone. But the kids will be taken care of at Kelly's parents' house, so it's fine. I won't take them in. It's over between us, Sarah.
What? No way.
It was just a fling from the start. I thought it'd end when I got bored. I made Kelly write the divorce papers when you said you were pregnant, but I never planned to divorce.
That's awful.
Compared to what you did to the kids, it's nothing. After being clearly rejected by Josh, Sarah left the house crying. I thought it would be more of a battle, but it ended quite easily. Now, I went to pick up the kids from my parents' house. It was more complicated there. My brother was there, and he said he had no intention of continuing the marriage with a woman who cheated like Sarah. Josh offered to cancel the divorce since he wasn't the father, but I firmly said I had no lingering feelings for a cheater. The kids, seeing all this, refused to live with Josh. They cried, saying they wouldn't go back to their dads, so it was decided they'd stay with us. However, we agreed that he would pay $7,000 a month in child support. Josh, who always loved kids, tried to take them in, but since they refused, he had to start working a night job in addition to his day job to pay them. He thought remarrying might help him get the kids back, so he started dating again, but when he mentioned the kids, they all ran away. He came back to me proposing remarriage, thinking it was the best solution. But I refused, not wanting to marry a cheater. The kids, seeing this, glared at Josh, protecting their mom. In the end, Josh, once so handsome, grew thin and haggard from his busy work life, a shadow of his former self. As for Sarah, she tried to reconcile with my brother, thinking if Josh didn't work out, he might. But he refused, saying he couldn't stay with a cheating woman. She ended up living alone, something she feared the most. Moreover, the child she gave birth to had an illness, and she's struggling every day. She regrets not cheating and wishes she had continued her marriage with my brother. As for me, thanks to the child support, we're living comfortably. The kids have found a stable place, no longer looking sad, and we're all filled with happiness. Out of the blue, my 9-year-old son was diagnosed with pediatric cancer. He had been complaining of persistent fatigue, and although I suspected it was more than just tiredness, I never imagined it would be cancer. From that day, he was forced to start a difficult treatment and hospitalization.
You think it's just laziness, right? You're just trying to gain sympathy by claiming it's something as serious as pediatric cancer. How attention-seeking can you be? Even when I told my husband about our son's illness, he didn't take it seriously. He kept saying he was too busy with work and never once visited our son in the hospital. My mother-in-law insisted that household chores were a wife's duty and did nothing but complain. Then one day, my husband and mother-in-law, who had never visited before, showed up in our son's hospital room.
You know, cancer can be cured with vitamins.
What? There are tons of testimonials online about miraculous cancer cures with vitamins. There's this one about stage 4 cancer disappearing in a week.
So I'll cure our son's cancer. He grabbed the orange juice our son was drinking and poured it over his head.
I'm off to a spa trip with your mother for a week. Make sure you're cured by the time we're back.
Both my son and I were speechless with disbelief. As soon as they left the room, my son, freed from his fear, broke down crying. Cure cancer with vitamins? What nonsense! And who pours liquid over a sick person like that? Fueled by an unbelievable anger, I resolved to seek revenge on them. As a result, a shocking truth awaited them when they returned a week later. I married my first husband at 26. He was 4 years older and had been my tutor when I was studying for school exams. We reconnected as colleagues at the same company. And gradually started talking about the future, leading to our marriage. The following year, our son was born. Just when we thought we were starting a new chapter as a family, my first husband passed away from an illness. Despite feeling unwell, he had delayed seeing a doctor due to work. One day, he collapsed at work and was later diagnosed with cancer. He began treatment immediately, but the disease progressed rapidly, and he passed away 3 months later. Years later, I remarried my current husband. At first, I was worried about how my son would get along with a stepfather. However, my husband and son gradually grew closer, and one day, my son asked if he could call him Dad. Surprised, my husband and I realized that was our answer and decided to get married. The meeting with my in-laws went smoothly, and they adored my son as their own grandson. While my husband was marrying for the first time, I was remarrying, so we had a wedding ceremony and reception with close family and friends. It was a warm and heartening event, despite the joke I made with a friend about having a wedding ceremony twice. On the surface, my husband's family seemed happy, but things were different on the inside. My husband had a younger brother who was married and living with the in-laws. My husband, having moved out for work, always said he never thought of marriage. His brother, being more serious, had decided to take over the family home and was living there with his wife. My mother-in-law didn't get along with my sister-in-law and always complained about her. I didn't want to take sides. I didn't want to make a judgment based solely on my mother-in-law's side of the story, but at the same time, I couldn't bring myself to ask my sister-in-law directly about the real situation. I just nodded along and mostly ignored my mother-in-law's constant complaints. But maybe that wasn't the best approach, as she started spending more and more time at our house. She found excuses to stay overnight, and before I knew it, she was practically living with us half the month. Eventually, she even started bringing her personal belongings and settled in for good. She became increasingly overbearing, acting like she owned the place. At first, she seemed like a kind and understanding mother-in-law to me and my son.
But gradually, it became clear she was engaging in the classic mother-in-law bullying. Before I remarried, I worked part-time, supported partly by my late husband's inheritance. Even after remarrying, I continued working part-time to contribute to our finances. Considering my son's future, having more money is definitely better. But my mother-in-law started implying that my husband's earnings were insufficient and urged me to quit my job.
After all, you're a mother. You should prioritize raising your child.
I never neglected my son because of my job. We had been managing just fine. Then she started making snide remarks to my son.
It's because of you that your mother struggles. Your new dad must be embarrassed by you.
She even forced him to do schoolwork meant for middle schoolers, way beyond his grade level. He's still at an age where he hasn't even learned the basics, and yet they're making him do middle school level workbooks. Of course, he couldn't answer a single question and ended up crying. She would take away his meals, complaining about his crying and saying, "Boys shouldn't cry so much." My son began to fear her and avoided being alone with her.
What an unlovable kid. It's because he lacks a mother's love that he's not adorable. What kind of upbringing is this?
She would say within earshot of my son, making him apologize to me often. It must have been heartbreaking for him to think he was the cause of my troubles. I couldn't confront her directly because she would take it out on my son. But I couldn't stay silent, considering my son's well-being. When my husband, who was often away for work, came home, I told him everything. But my husband said that his mother would never say such things and certainly wouldn't do anything terrible to the children, completely dismissing what I said.
My mom would never say or do such things to a child. Are you sure you're not being too harsh on her?
What?
She's complained about you not doing your household duties properly. We can live on my salary alone, so focus on your household responsibilities.
I was accused of forcing housework on my aging mother-in-law, something completely foreign to me. I never demanded her to do any chores. In fact, I'd never seen her lift a finger around the house. She just sat there, ordering me around. She complained about the food but never showed me how she preferred it to be cooked. I'm not a mind reader. How am I supposed to know a taste I've never experienced? I wanted to retort so many times, but always held back, fearing my son would become her target. Gradually, my husband also started to become cold and indifferent towards me and our son. Even that indifference would have been bearable if it were just that. Sometimes, he'd suddenly lose his temper as if possessed by another personality. Though he never hit us, he'd throw things, and one time something hit my son. My son was crying in pain and fear, and my husband just told him to stop crying and dragged him outside to the yard. I stood up for my son, blocking him with my body. I thought my husband would hit me, but instead, he said he was turned off by the situation and lost interest, which somehow diffused the situation. I guess he must be stressed from work. Believing he would return to his kind self once he calmed down, I decided to endure it, all the while being ready to protect my son from any harm. In the midst of these unimproving relationships with my husband and mother-in-law, my son turned 9. He loved basketball and had started attending a class for elementary school kids organized by an adult basketball team. Having something he was passionate about and less time facing my mother-in-law made him visibly happier. Then one day, he started feeling unwell. I thought he had just overexerted himself in basketball, so I let him skip class, but his condition didn't improve even after a week. In fact, it seemed to get worse. I took him to the pediatrician who had been looking after him since he was little, and they suggested we go to a larger hospital for thorough testing. I knew nothing about big hospitals, having never been sick or injured, except when my late first husband was treated. The pediatrician, having connections, wrote us a referral. He urged us to go as soon as possible, preferably the next day. I later learned that without a referral, there's an extra charge for the first visit at a big hospital. I was relieved we had the doctor's help, but terrified that my son might have a serious illness. When I told my husband, I asked him to come with us, but he refused.
It's probably just him faking it. Did something happen at school? If you believe every little thing a kid says, no amount of money will be enough. Big hospitals are expensive, right?
You handle it with your part-time earnings. I've heard that children sometimes use fake illnesses to rebel against their parents. But would a child use a fake illness to reduce their appetite? And would they continue that state for an entire week? Even adults who fast to make a statement find a week quite lengthy. It requires more than ordinary resolve to do so. Anyway, my son's illness lasting a week definitely meant something was wrong. I had no problem paying with my part-time earnings and declared to my husband that I would take our son by myself. He just said, "Do whatever you want," and was quite grumpy that evening. The next day at the hospital, they prepared for the worst-case scenario. "What's the worst case?" I asked the doctor. "Pediatric cancer," he replied. He mentioned symptoms like not being able to differentiate it from a cold, abdominal pain, and sudden weight loss, and asked if I had noticed anything. Then my son revealed that his joints had been hurting for a while. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. He said he didn't want to worry me more or have my husband and mother-in-law say bad things to me because of him. I felt terrible that he was suffering but still concerned about me. If I had been handling things better with my husband and mother-in-law, maybe I would have noticed my son's discomfort sooner. Or realized something was off with him keeping quiet. As I was reflecting on my shortcomings, another shock came. My son's illness was an early symptom of pediatric cancer. He needed to be hospitalized, and while preparing for it, I told my husband and mother-in-law. "Pediatric cancer? A money-draining failure of a kid. I'm not paying a single cent. Cancer is hereditary, isn't it? Your first husband died of cancer, right? Great, now we've inherited something extra." My husband coldly remarked. It was heartless. Treating a disease costs a lot. Especially cancer, which requires a significant amount for treatment. My mother-in-law seemed only worried about the financial aspect. In response, my husband said in front of me that my son's treatment costs would be covered by my part-time earnings, so there was no problem. I couldn't stand being around these insensitive people any longer, so I hurried back to the hospital where my son was waiting. He had to give up the basketball he loved so much and his enjoyable school life to focus on his treatment. Thankfully, the pediatric ward had a school, so he wouldn't fall behind in his studies. But the reality of seeing other children, who seemed to be having a tougher time, shocked him. Will I end up like that? Will I never be able to play basketball again? I wanted to become a famous basketball player and make things easier for you, Mom. He lamented, feeling like he was constantly burdening me. I was told that the way we handle our emotions can affect his condition, so I was careful not to add to his stress. I never blamed him, but maybe my concern showed on my face. Did I unconsciously emit an aura that made him anxious? I had to change my mindset and support and encourage my son, who was becoming increasingly disheartened. There were times when my son, overwhelmed by his illness, cried out in despair, saying he didn't care about getting better anymore and just wanted to die. The side effects of the treatment were so severe and unbearable that it seemed like he couldn't endure them any longer. Cancer treatment can be so tough that even adults struggle with it. I thought I understood the difficulties of cancer treatment from my late husband's experience, but he passed away without undergoing much treatment. In reality, I only thought I knew about it, but I didn't truly understand the extent of it. It's easy to say, but it's another thing to do it. To support my son, I sought advice from those who had been through it. Thanks to being at a university hospital, I was introduced to a student who had experienced pediatric cancer. Listening to their story about what words hurt and what words were comforting. It was incredibly helpful. My son and I were both struggling with his illness, but we were determined to work towards his recovery. Yet, my husband and mother-in-law never visited. Honestly, their presence might have made us feel worse. But a little concern when I went home for my son's clothes would have been nice. Back to the hospital again? Aren't you my wife? What are you doing, neglecting your home for this? It was the kind of response I'd get when I did hear from my husband. Whether at the hospital or home, I never got a moment's peace. I was constantly on edge, barely holding on with sheer willpower. Amidst all this, my father-in-law was the only one who regularly visited. His concern for my son and me, along with his light-hearted conversations, allowed us to forget our harsh reality for a while. I couldn't be more grateful to him. It was also heartening to see my son, who usually looked so downcast, smile more when his grandfather was around. My father-in-law had confided in me that he had lost a close friend to cancer. And having seen the burden on the family and the struggle of his friend, he wanted to help us in any way he could. Just knowing he felt that way was enough for me. I sometimes wished that my husband and mother-in-law would show even a tenth of the compassion my father-in-law did. But expecting anything from them only led to deeper disappointment, so I stopped expecting anything at all. One day, my mother-in-law and husband, who had shown no interest in my son's fight against illness, came to his hospital room.
How long do you plan to run away from home like a rebellious teenager? The house is a mess because you're not there. A wife has her duties, right? Everyone dies eventually, so just leave him be. Cancer recovery is just a matter of luck, isn't it, T?
Cancer recovery? A matter of luck? Everyone dies eventually? What are they even talking about? Is that something to say in a ward full of people fighting for their lives? I was so enraged and appalled that I lost my composure.
Isn't there a right time and place to say certain things? Haven't you, who have lived many times longer than my son, learned that yet? Maybe you too should get a brain scan. Sometimes a tumor in the brain can twist a person's personality.
I vaguely remembered a medical drama with a similar plot. I said it confidently, hoping to scare them a bit.
Are you insulting the mother who raised me? Your son's weakened cancer-ridden state is a result of your poor upbringing, right? Cancer can be instantly cured by vitamins. I read about it on the internet. So I'll cure him.
My husband said, and then poured my son's orange juice over his head. It was an action so beyond my imagination that I couldn't intervene. My son and I were too shocked to react immediately and could only stand there dumbfounded. My husband and mother-in-law laughed at us, pointing their fingers.
We're going on a trip. If your stupid son's illness isn't cured by the time we get back, you don't know what we might do. Remember that. Make sure you clean up the house by the time we get back from our trip.
They commanded and left the room. Once they were gone, the tension broke, and my son burst into tears out of fear. Nurses rushed in upon hearing the commotion, busying themselves with cleaning and changing the sheets. My son and I had to wait in an empty room. I apologized to my son for the fact that what should have been the most comforting place, his home, had become his greatest source of fear. I regretted my naivety in thinking that reducing contact with my mother-in-law might help and apologized for the years of enduring this situation. My son, kind-hearted as always, comforted me, saying that he had endured my mother-in-law's meanness just like I had. I vowed to take such revenge on my husband and mother-in-law that they would never recover. A week after making this vow, my husband called me.
Hey! Why can't I get into my own house? What kind of wife locks out her husband? Who do you think provides for you?
He yelled through the phone, his voice piercing even with the volume turned down. When did that house become his? It was inherited from my late first husband. My husband suggested we start our married life in my house, saying his apartment lease was about to expire. He promised that eventually, we would get a new place, but there was never any sign of that happening. In the end, he just casually moved in without any real commitment to finding us a new home. Before I remarried, I was approached by an acquaintance of my late husband, offering to buy the house. The offer was above market value, and it was tempting. I thought we would move to a new home after marrying, and my husband might find it uncomfortable living in a house associated with my late husband. The acquaintance even offered to pay the amount I wanted for the well-located and well-designed house. However, I couldn't part with the memories of my late husband and didn't sell it. I told them we could discuss it again when the time comes. But my husband never brought up the subject of a new house, and my mother-in-law settled in as if it were the most natural thing, leading to the current situation. I suddenly remembered someone saying that memories aren't tangible things. Now, I finally understand that memories reside in a person's mind. It's actually quite late for me to realize this. I should have let go of the house when my mother-in-law first started to stay over. When I reached out to my late husband's acquaintance to discuss selling the house, albeit belatedly, he was happy to proceed. He even apologized for bringing up the sale during my time of grief. The sale procedures were already completed. He was considerate about my moving out and my son's illness, agreeing to schedule the handover at my convenience. I was grateful, but to truly take revenge on my husband and mother-in-law, I quickly moved out. I sent their belongings to my in-laws' house, paying the shipping fees myself. My son and I took only the essentials and had already moved to our new place. When my husband kept insisting it was his house, I reminded him that it was inherited from my late husband, thus it was mine. He was momentarily taken aback but quickly retaliated.
Even if that's true, you had no right to make such a decision without consulting me. After all, I was the one paying for the maintenance of that house.
Living in a house inevitably leads to some wear and tear, like issues with water flow or the toilet not functioning properly. His argument was nonsensical, asserting ownership because he paid for some repairs. I ignored his rationale and declared my intention to divorce him. My mother-in-law, who had been eavesdropping, intervened.
What an ungrateful woman! Accepting you as a wife with your baggage, and now you want a divorce? Women like you are just a nuisance wherever they go.
I'm telling you I'll disappear from your lives, which should make you happy. Why won't you agree to the divorce? I thought you'd be celebrating. Be honest about your feelings. Stung by the truth, my mother-in-law fell silent and didn't retort. But that didn't mean I had the upper hand. I needed to be cautious and not show any weaknesses. When selling the house, my late husband's acquaintance showed concern about the sudden decision. I confessed that I had planned to sell the house once I found a new place with my current husband. The delay was due to my husband dragging his feet and my mother-in-law's imposing presence. I had given up on fixing my relationship with my mother-in-law long ago. I had hoped my husband would return to the man he was when we met, which led to my indecisiveness. The acquaintance sympathized with my situation and introduced me to a competent lawyer. The lawyer was very supportive and said we should divorce for the happiness of my son and me. I proceeded with the divorce through the lawyer, and my husband eventually agreed to it. The reason for my late husband's acquaintance's kindness was that he was an executive in a company, and one of their clients was the company where my husband worked. Moreover, my husband was the manager in charge of that account. When the acquaintance requested a change in the representative, my husband's bosses interrogated him about any misconduct. The client company was important, and they didn't want to lose them. However, my husband denied any wrongdoing. His superiors, who had heard unfavorable rumors about him, conducted an internal investigation. It was revealed that my husband, along with my mother-in-law, had been treating my son terribly. Apparently, my husband had been spreading rumors among his subordinates and colleagues, saying that his stepchild was weak, stupid, and useless. My husband had been bragging to his colleagues and subordinates about how he had poured orange juice over my son's head because he supposedly had pediatric cancer. "I'm awesome for doing that," he boasted. A suspicious subordinate checked the website my husband mentioned, which turned out to be a dubious online store claiming that cancer could be cured with vitamins. Recently, the news reported that the site's operator had been arrested after many victims came forward. It was one of those organizations selling miracle water at a high price. When called in by his boss, my husband was defiant. "What does this have to do with the company? What I do to the kid doesn't affect my work." He even bragged about how he had been treating my son, claiming it was just discipline. The company pointed out that his behavior was too far removed from common decency and too risky to continue employing him in today's society, leading to his dismissal. Later, my husband heard a rumor from a former subordinate that the executive of the client company knew me. In reality, the acquaintance was a friend of my late husband, but rumors often get twisted. Panicked, my husband came to me for help, showing up at my workplace, which was nothing but a nuisance. Apparently, my late husband's acquaintance had been making things difficult for my ex-husband's re-employment. Even without the acquaintance's intervention, the reason for leaving his last job would have to be explained. Being fired usually implies a significant reason. I told my desperate husband, who had only come to me when in trouble, that he was reaping what he sowed, and sent him away. My mother-in-law returned to her marital home nonchalantly, but she no longer had a place there. When I decided to divorce my husband, I made sure to tell everything to my father-in-law, who had always been kind to my son. He was deeply hurt and outraged that even his young grandson had been targeted. Additionally, the fact that my sister-in-law had also been mistreated by her came to light, leading my father-in-law to finally lose all patience with her. When my mother-in-law returned to the house as if it were her right, my father-in-law told her they were getting a divorce. Initially reluctant, she changed her mind, thinking it better to receive alimony than to live with a disliked daughter-in-law and a disenchanted husband. However, instead of receiving alimony, she ended up being the one who had to pay it. My sister-in-law demanded compensation for the mental distress caused by her. My ex-husband, who had been staying at the house as a temporary arrangement, was also kicked out after my father-in-law discovered his cruel treatment of me and my son. My mother-in-law now lives in a cheap apartment, seemingly rotting away with my ex-husband. He struggles to find steady employment, resorting to day-to-day labor to make ends meet. My mother-in-law, having been a housewife for many years, refuses to work, leading to constant fights between the two. They blame each other, and their quarrels are so loud that they've received police warnings for noise complaints several times. In reality, both are to blame. My mother-in-law instigated the issues, and my husband was complicit by participating. Given her rotten nature, she seems likely to survive stubbornly, regardless of how low her living conditions fall. After everything was settled, my father-in-law visited my son. And I once apologized deeply for what his wife and son had done. He hoped for our future happiness and discreetly offered me some money as compensation for the trouble caused. I initially refused, but he insisted, saying he couldn't be there until my son's full recovery, so I gratefully accepted. Following the divorce, my son began to feel relieved from the fear of my mother-in-law and husband, and his mental state started stabilizing. Being able to take a positive outlook, his condition improved, as noted by his doctor. Setting goals for himself, he stopped complaining about the tough treatments. His efforts paid off, and he was granted temporary discharge from the hospital. If there are no issues, we can gradually return to normal life while continuing the treatment. Soon, his condition becomes more stable. Though there are restrictions, he can start attending school again. He might still need occasional hospitalization, but it's no longer for extended periods like before. My son is setting goals for himself, like things he wants to do and foods he wants to eat once he's discharged and after the treatment ends, all aiming towards complete recovery. The school has been understanding about his illness, and many students are genuinely kind to him, which gives me peace of mind when sending him off to school. I feel relieved and happy seeing him slowly but surely showing signs of recovery. Moving forward, I am determined to work hand in hand with my son to grasp even greater happiness.
Wow, look! Those big round eyes. True that. It's been years since I've seen a baby this close. Just looking at her is so soothing. Babies really are wonderful, aren't they?
My sister, Emily, had given birth, and my in-laws insisted on seeing the baby, coming all the way from afar. The baby, being cradled by Emily, was sleeping soundly at the center of attention.
You're being such a good girl today, not crying. I wonder what kind of adult you'll grow into. Ah, babies are great. Why don't we have one, huh, Linda?
Inside the room, filled with warm sunlight, I harbored swirling emotions that were mine alone.
Well, babies are a blessing, you know. All right, let's start trying for a baby. I want a child too.
The moment I heard this, I slowly stood up. All eyes in the room turned to me. Eh? Aren't you already a dad to this little one? All eyes then shifted to the baby. My name is Linda. I turned 41 this year. Currently, I work part-time at a deli in a shopping mall close to our home. My husband, Michael, is 2 years older than me and works as a long-haul truck driver for a transport company, spending most of his days on the road. He comes home maybe once or twice a week. We both prefer not to be too involved with each other, so I rarely feel lonely.
At least, that's what I tell myself. The only thing that makes me feel lonely is the fact that we don't have children. It's not that we never wanted them. In our 20s, just married, we thought it was just a matter of timing and youth. But as I entered my 30s, the absence of children started to feel more pressing, and we even tried some of the then uncommon fertility treatments. I was getting anxious about not seeing results, but Michael felt differently. If nothing comes of it after all this time, what's the point in continuing? Maybe, but if we keep trying, it might work out. I'm tired from work, and spending my days off at the hospital is just depressing. I'm healthy, Linda. Maybe the problem is with you? After that, Michael stopped going to the treatments. Honestly, we weren't exactly flush with cash. Feeling resentful of Michael's words, I gradually stopped going to the hospital too.
Good morning, you're up early. Good morning. I just woke up early, couldn't get back to sleep.
The lady who greeted me while I was taking out the trash lived on the floor below. We've been living in this apartment complex for almost 20 years, and she's been here even longer. Not just her, but many of the residents have lived here for a long time. Maybe that's why the age group here is on the older side, but everyone's nice and there's never any neighborhood trouble. If there's any trouble, it's within the home. I muttered to myself, unheard by anyone. When I was younger, I dreamt of spending all my time with him. But now, the only relief I have is when Michael is away at work. While our relationship isn't bad on the surface, after over 20 years of marriage, our conversations have dwindled. Plus, we both naturally avoid talking about children. Then one afternoon, the doorbell rang.
Hey sis, it's Emily.
Come in, welcome. Standing at the door was my sister, Emily, 5 years my junior. I started dating Michael and moved in with him around the time Emily graduated from high school and left our family home. Our family home isn't too far from where we live. Our mother moved into a nursing home, and since then, our father, George, has been living alone.
Ever drop by to see Dad?
No, I've been too busy to go back home. Dad hardly ever answers the phone. He's probably doing fine though. Typical Dad. He may not be good with words, but I bet he's feeling lonely. You visit him often enough, so it's fine, isn't it? You really do whatever you please, don't you? Our father, George, has always been a workaholic and quite reserved with everyone. He used to leave all the household chores to Mom. Now, he can manage his daily needs, at least. But right after Mom passed away, I was so worried about Dad that I used to visit our family home every day.
Hey, Dad. Here's your food for tomorrow morning and lunch. You can microwave it in the container. I've folded the laundry, so just put it away yourself. Oh, and…
Dad never said much, but I kept visiting, resigning myself to his ways. Michael's parents, on the other hand, live far away in a place where snow piles up to an adult's height in winter. They're much more sociable than my dad and often come to visit us. By the way, I still have some persimmons my mother-in-law brought over last time. Want some? Nah, I'm good for now. There's a drama I want to watch today, so I'll head back before evening. I'll take the persimmons with me. Okay, I'll get them ready for you. Michael's parents sure do visit a lot, considering the distance. Mom loves the city life. She's thrilled just going around the shopping mall with us. I remember you two went out together last month. I'm lucky to have a good relationship with my in-laws. We can talk about anything. Well, I want to stop by the convenience store on my way home, so I should get going. Be careful, it gets dark early these days. Don't sound like Mom. We're both old enough, you know. When's your next day off? Let's go to that new cafe near the station. I think I'm off this Saturday. All right, I'll get in touch. Emily checked her schedule on her smartphone. She lives just a couple of bus stops away. She often comes over to our place for dinner, saying she's too lazy to cook. She even has her own pillow here since she frequently ends up staying the night.
Oh, right, sis. I'm pregnant. What? What do you mean?
Her unexpected announcement caught me off guard.
You know those dating apps? They're actually kind of fun.
I met someone I really clicked with about a year ago. One thing led to another, and when I went to the doctor because I wasn't feeling well, they told me I'm 3 months pregnant.
Emily spoke with a laugh here and there.
Is he a decent guy?
I don't know if you'd approve, but he's a good person. She sounded a bit subdued. Maybe she felt guilty about meeting someone through a dating app. Anyway, congratulations.
Is that the right thing to say?
Sorry for being happy before you.
No, don't worry about it.
I felt a sting in my heart but hid my feelings, thinking I should be happy for Emily's joy. Let me know if you need anything, okay? Thanks, I'll count on you. As Emily opened the door to leave, a swirl of mixed feelings churned inside me. I should be happy for her, I reminded myself. When Michael came home, I told him about Emily's pregnancy.
What? Pregnant? Emily is? Whose child?
Someone she met on a dating app. I haven't met him yet. I see. Well, that's certainly something to celebrate. Michael sat down on the sofa, finished his beer, and turned to me. But why don't we have such happy news in our home?
What? You're bringing this up now?
It's your fault for stopping the treatment, isn't it? I'd like to hold my own child too.
You were the first to quit the treatment. Don't blame me.
There's nothing wrong with my health. I do envy people with kids. It seemed in Michael's eyes, I was the only one at fault. I felt irritation towards him and frustration at ourselves for not being able to share and overcome our problems as a couple. Since then, Michael frequently made snide remarks about us not having children. If I had a child, I'd secretly watch them run errands. He would openly express his admiration while watching TV shows featuring children. Once, he even bought a book about fertility treatments and threw it at me. I paid for the book with your money. Make sure you read it thoroughly. Is it fair to be harassed like this just because we can't have children? To distract myself, I started helping Emily more often. With cleaning, shopping, and cooking. Sorry, sis, the morning sickness has been terrible. It's okay. Emily's place was always messy whenever I visited, and her meals seemed to consist mostly of store-bought deli food or instant ramen. Being pregnant is tough. Everything tires you out more. Oh, sorry. I guess you wouldn't know, not having a baby. Emily sometimes tried to one-up me, often exaggerating the difficulties of pregnancy. Yet, she didn't seem to be focusing on getting the right nutrition for the baby or preparing for after the birth. I occasionally tried to advise her, but it didn't seem to make much of an impact. Emily's child was growing well, but I had one major concern. I had never seen the man who would be her husband. Have you thought about introducing him to Dad? It seems like he got a promotion or something, and he's often away on business trips. Greetings seem old-fashioned, so I thought it might be fine to skip them. Okay. Let me know when you can. Yeah. With that, Emily abruptly ended the conversation as if declaring the topic closed. I had other thoughts, but chose not to pry further. It wasn't the right time. Time passed, and Emily gave birth to a boy. She hesitated to tell our father. She and Dad never talked much. Dad might get mad, saying things should be done in a certain order. Really? He was quite accepting when I told him. After much urging from me, Emily finally called to inform him. Despite her worries, Dad simply responded with his usual lack of emotion, I see. Michael's parents, on the other hand, were overjoyed when I told them about Emily's childbirth, celebrating as if it was their first grandchild.
Hey, Linda, we'd like to send a gift. Would that be okay?
They sent Emily congratulatory gifts through Michael, diaper cakes, bibs, baby clothes, and more. Unable to hold back, they eagerly hoped to meet the baby, if Emily wouldn't mind. Michael's parents want to see the baby. Why? It's none of their business. They gave you a lot of gifts, right? It wouldn't hurt to meet them. Initially reluctant, Emily eventually gave in. I arranged for everyone to meet at my house, and the celebration began surrounded by an abundance of food ordered by Michael's parents.
Look at those big round eyes. It's been years since I've seen a baby up close.
Michael's parents were incredibly excited. Michael, who was also present, seemed ready to enjoy the gathering.
Ah, babies are great. Why don't we have one, Linda? Well, babies are a blessing.
Even so, not being able to get pregnant for nearly 20 years, I wonder if there's something wrong with you. That's not true.
Right, let's try for a baby again. I want one too.
I slowly stood up as he said this. All eyes turning to me.
What? But you're already this child's father, aren't you?
I pointed to the baby Emily was holding, now sleeping peacefully. The room fell into an astonishing silence. Emily was the first to speak, laying the baby down and glaring at me.
What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. You've gone crazy because you can't have kids? That's right. My child? Are you saying Emily and I had an affair? Ridiculous.
Michael's parents watched the exchange, confused.
I get it. You're trying to make up some story to claim the baby as your own. It's shameful to frame your sister like this. Exactly. You've always been like this. Blaming others. Maybe it's your fault we don't have kids.
Michael's mother tried to intervene, but I took out my smartphone.
I decided not to trust you too when I saw this.
The smartphone screen displayed Emily's home. I showed them the accumulated photos one after another. There were photos of Michael leaving her place and the two of them embracing passionately. Michael and Emily, who had just been insulting me, were speechless and turned pale. This photo was taken 3 years ago.
Why do you have such a thing?
When Emily stayed over, you seemed unusually excited, Michael. And Emily, you were too close to him. I was worried.
That was just normal.
I learned a few days before I took this photo from the old lady downstairs. She said she heard a woman's voice, thought someone was home. Odd, since I was just returning from my part-time job.
That could have been a mistake. Maybe she heard the TV.
Oh, you said you were at work that day, but you were home, Michael. At first, I thought you were seeing another woman. I didn't want to believe it but decided to track your smartphone's GPS to be sure. You had no right to do that. Then I found out you were at Emily's place. That alone wasn't enough evidence, and I couldn't bring myself to go there. So I asked someone to take these photos. The shock of seeing those photos was almost suffocating. But my anger and determination overcame it.
I've been watching you too, knowing the truth. Did you think you were not being caught? I gathered plenty of evidence. So you doubted my pregnancy announcement?
It was a shock. I wanted it to be a lie. But Emily, you always avoid eye contact and flee when you lie. You did the same when I asked about the father.
What are you talking about?
The atmosphere in the room was heavy. I felt a tremendous pressure. But I couldn't back down now. This had to be resolved today, or I'd regret it forever.
This is a lie, a mistake.
Michael, did you betray Linda? My father-in-law's voice trembled. And my mother-in-law looked ready to cry. I felt sorry for involving them but needed witnesses. The house had turned into a battlefield. When suddenly the front door burst open. It was my father. With heavy footsteps, my father marched in confidently and headed straight towards Emily.
Dad!
His face was red with anger.
Emily! You! What? It's none of your business, Dad. Still saying that after all this? I saw and heard you too with my own eyes and ears. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. I was the one who took the photos. Linda came to me in tears, asking for help. I tracked you too instead of her.
I had tracked their movements with GPS and wanted to capture them in a photo as definitive proof. But doubt crept in. Should I really expose the truth? Or pretend nothing happened and continue as before? In my dilemma, I turned to my father. My stubborn father listened to me empathetically. The way he faced the mistakes his own daughter had made was incredibly reassuring. He offered to help me by capturing the situation firsthand, instead of me doing it.
Don't meddle in unnecessary matters. In front of the entrance, you two were talking loudly. I could hear everything clearly from a distance. Do you remember what you were talking about? I don't remember every little thing. You said, I can't stand that only Linda gets to be happy, and Michael said, I love you more than Linda. I want to break up with her and be with you instead. If you want to hear it in your own voices, I recorded it on my phone.
My usually quiet father was unable to contain his anger.
I too wanted to be happy about having a grandson. But when I heard the truth from Linda, I felt more ashamed than anything. Children can't choose their parents. When this child learns the truth, can you face him as a parent?
Seeing my father speak his mind brought me close to tears for the first time today. I tried to hide my watery eyes and turned back to Michael and Emily. My father started speaking in a resonating, calm voice.
Apologize now, Emily. Apologize sincerely. It's not too late to ask for forgiveness. Apologize from your heart, right here, right now. I don't know anything. It's not my fault.
Emily was flustered and backed into a corner by my father. Tears were streaming down her face, but I felt no sympathy.
Michael, where are you going?
I turned around to see Michael trying to sneak out, but my father-in-law caught him.
What kind of person are you?
My father-in-law, having caught Michael, forced him to apologize to me. Then, my father-in-law himself also apologized.
Linda, I'm sorry. So sorry.
His voice trembled differently than before. Next to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, crying, apologized along with him. Michael seemed resigned and didn't resist.
Please lift your faces. Dad, calm down. The baby will wake up.
I took a deep breath and pulled out my final card from my bag.
Our marriage is beyond repair. Michael, let's get a divorce.
I put the divorce papers in front of Michael.
Divorce?
Yes.
I can no longer trust you. Isn't this an overreaction? It was just a fling.
Michael's face showed the most pitiful expression I had ever seen.
A fling? You're saying I was just a fling to you? I even had a baby because of this fling.
Emily, scolded by my father and betrayed by Michael, shouted in a face twisted with anger and sorrow.
I don't know anything about a baby. Is there even proof it's mine? It's definitely your child, Michael. There's no one else.
Under the pressure, both began to shed their pretenses.
Michael, you always talked about longing for children, yet now you reject this baby?
Well, that's...
And Emily, why did you get involved with someone else's husband? Like Dad said earlier, I couldn't stand the idea of only you being happy. Isn't it true that you were desperate for attention, and the only one who showed interest was Michael? Blaming me made you feel less guilty. What do you know, just because you're married?
Emily always had trouble keeping relationships for long. It wouldn't be surprising if she felt inferior to me. But that doesn't excuse her actions. After all, I had been betrayed for these 3 years.
Sorry, but I've made up my mind. I'm going back to my parents' house. This way, you'll have what you want, your child and the baby. Isn't this what you wanted? What about leaving? Who will do the housework then?
Obviously, Emily will. Right?
What? Why should I have to do that? That's what Michael wants in a wife, isn't it?
In the end, both of them remained unrepentant until the last. Perhaps their twisted nature made it easier for me to finally break away from them. Ignoring Michael's pleas, I grabbed my packed belongings and left the apartment with my father. Michael and Emily were left in a daze, while my in-laws continued to apologize. The day after returning to my parents' house, my father began packing up all of Emily's belongings left at home.
Emily needs to know she doesn't have a place in her home anymore.
He took the packed items to Emily's house, seemingly determined to set her straight, but returned sooner than expected.
She wasn't there. A wasted trip. You must be tired. Shall I make some tea?
I poured hot water from an old electric kettle into a teapot.
Didn't you just not want to see her face?
A parent always remains a parent, no matter what their child becomes. He looked me in the eyes as he spoke. You're still my proud child. Don't get all sentimental. You're too old for that. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I poured tea into his cup to change the subject. After leaving Emily's house, my father had also stopped by the apartment where I used to live. It was empty, a day after the chaos, with no one around. He happened to meet a neighbor from the floor below. They told him that loud voices continued even after we left our home, and that my in-laws had come by later with apologies. I truly felt indebted to my in-laws. My divorce from Michael went smoothly, thanks to the help of my in-laws. I thought about alimony, but considering Michael's future, it seemed impossible for him to pay. I wanted to avoid causing any trouble for my in-laws. Without any constraints, Michael's life became disordered. Before our divorce, I managed all our finances. After the divorce, Michael, having control over his income, seemed to spend recklessly without self-control. He began to go out drinking every night and seldom returned to his apartment. Showing up to work hungover is not an option in the transport industry, and he was quickly fired. He tried to find another job, but repeated the same mistakes at a different transport company. Lacking the skills for another field, Michael eventually couldn't pay his rent and was evicted. Now, I don't even know where he is or how he's living. As for Emily, Michael's parents, concerned about the baby, offered to live with her. It must have been a tough decision for them, seeing as how she played a role in destroying their son's family. Yet, they reached out to her, concerned about the baby's future. But their kindness didn't resonate with Emily. Feeling uncomfortable after Michael's dismissal, she left the baby with them and left without a destination. The baby is now thriving under the care of my in-laws. I've been in touch with them even after the divorce. They are my source of information about Michael and Emily. Both abandoned their parental responsibilities, exploiting the kindness of others to escape their troubles. I contacted my in-laws partly to atone for the neglect of my ex-husband and his sister. The baby is innocent in all this. Through special adoption, the baby is now legally their child. While I'm no longer connected to the baby, my in-laws always welcome me with warmth. I now interact with them as friends, not just in-laws. Even though Michael is gone, they visit me as often as before. They say once you experience the fun of the city, it's hard to stop, they remark. I appreciate you coming all this way. I'll make sure you're well taken care of during your stay, I reply. I know they're considering my feelings and my dad's. I feel guilty for their long trips, but I'm grateful for their kindness. Someday, I'll have to tell the child the truth, but I believe we can overcome it with my understanding in-laws. My father is still quiet, but seems a bit softer than before. He's even started helping with the baby. When my mother-in-law and I do the dishes, he quietly approaches the baby. He tries to hide it, but he's clearly smitten with the baby. Once, I caught him casually changing a diaper. Wow, Dad, you can change diapers? That's surprising. What are you talking about? I've raised kids twice. This is a piece of cake. Despite everything, it was probably my father who was the happiest to hear that Emily had a baby. I never asked him directly, but I could imagine him doing a victory pose in his heart, and I couldn't help but smile to myself as I watched him. I quit my previous part-time job and started working as a caregiver in the facility where my mother is staying. The job is tough, but I enjoy talking with many people, including my mother. Not all the problems I faced have disappeared. But even so, I am happy now. I plan to find even more joy in life, enough to make up for the times I've missed out on.